All right, so it looks like I blew it here. Well, my brain is elsewhere, I guess. Okay, so that is the reason what happened. I totally messed that up. Oh my God. All right, let me just bring this up here and I will see if, okay, okay, so yeah. All right, so, uh, oh, it just frustrates the shit out of me. All right, so I pressed the wrong button. Oh well. Well, my brain's not really here. Part my brain's not here. So yes, I pressed the one for Thursday. Did not mean for that to happen. Hey Jaden, welcome back. Did not mean for that to happen. I gotta rebuild that after I get done here. So I was telling you guys all about Chris Alexander on Christy Adams' show. Which is all right in actuality because both of them are outstanding human beings. So, you know, but I want to talk to Chris today, and then we'll be talking to Christy on Thursday. Yeah, sorry about that, kids. Wow, that was not one of my more shinier moments here. Um, Hopefully people will come back. People will come back. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so messed up. All right, so that's one for the books. So, yeah, for those who are just walking in, excitement, right? Um, so I've known Chris for 10 years. I've known him for, yeah, for 10 years and a little over that. And his track record is very impressive. Uh, he has, yeah, it's very impressive. And he has done he's like I said, he was the editor of Fangoria um, back in the day. He was he also did he ran that for the he did that for the oof, let me just clean this up real quick. All right. So that way people don't come to that by mistake 'cause I don't want that to happen. Yeah, I made a big hiccup there, that's for sure. All right. So Chris, like I said, Chris is from Fangoria. He's discovered so many different artists, directors, actors, producers. He's given them so much coverage, so much press. If you're in this business and have been in this business for 20, 25 years or so, somewhere down the line, you're going to owe a thanks to Chris Alexander because somewhere down the line, he has talked about you. He's either talked to you or he's talked about you in one of the two magazines that he's run, whether it be Fangoria or Delirium. Chris is also one of the few people I know that actually got off the podcast ground when he started his podcast. When they were in Fangoria, they started a podcast with Dee Snider and Debbie Rochon. They started a podcast before anybody else. In fact, that's the first time I ever heard the term podcast is when Debbie Rochon and Dee Snider from Twisted Sister did it. Dee Snider is a huge horror fan, and of course, Debbie Rochon is a living legend. Um, so he got them going. He got them going on a podcast underneath the Fangoria banner. He also had the insight to have Debbie Rochon write a column, which was must reading every Fangoria. Um, yeah, and then of course Fangoria, he Chris left. Chris moved on, and then they had brought in a new editor, and things just changed. I don't want to say he ran it into the ground because I'm not entirely sure about that. But I do know that when Chris left, the magazine was doing very well. And then when he left, and then soon after that, the wheels came off of Fangoria, and it's had a hard time struggling to get back to where it even sort of was. And I don't not sure if they've done so. Of course, Chris did his own independent films. He's made several of them. He's made Female Werewolf. He's made Blood for I think it's Blood for Erna. Uh, let's see. I think that was I know the one for sure. the one I remember the most, as far as him being a director for, uh, was, I know he did, A Girl with a Straight Razor. I remember that one. I also remember he did Queen of Blood and Blood for Erna. Those are the first 2 films that he did, and then he made Female Werewolf. And then he's done, a low budget horror all the way through. Learning as he goes. Every movie that Chris makes and gets released gets a little bit better and better. He's taken all of those lessons that he's learned from talking to different people and applied it to his craft. Chris is also very close friends with Roger Corman. Chris and Roger Corman were very good friends, and we'll be talking about that with Chris here, in a little bit. Um, and because he wrote a beautiful little elegy for him. Yeah. Hey Hobbs, how are you? Uh, all right. Okay, Fangoria still up and running. Yes. I think that Fangoria, if I'm not mistaken, Stephen, I think Fangoria puts out four zines a year, and I think it's all digital now. I think they've almost gone digital, and I'm sure that Delirium, I think Delirium is the same thing. I think Delirium does between 4 and 6 issues a year as well. Plus, they work with, Full Moon with the Band Brothers, and Chris also works with, Roger Corman. He worked with Roger Corman. Let's see. Hey Anthony, how are you? Terrible game last night, brother. Horrible game. Horrible game. Thank you, John Carlos Stanton. Yeah, horrible name. Horrible game yesterday. Um, okay, let me bring up my Facebook just in case he needs to see if he can chat with me if he needs to. Yeah. So I got some good news. I got some good news. So I talked to I talked to Adam Marcus. As you know, he came on and did a great interview with myself and Eric Hyde and Al Lucard, aka the Bat. And we interviewed him, and he's been working on a documentary about that movie, Jason Goes to Hell, and he has gotten it like super like this far away from launching it. He's this far away from launching it. Now we talked to Adam over a year ago, and they were filming it and whatnot, but it hit all sorts of snags. And Adam and being a professional that he has to go through the hoops, and he's done his due diligence. So that is coming out really, really soon, and I really hope that he'll come back and do another visit with us. And of course, if he does, we got to bring back the Bat and Eric for that as well. Let's see. Sure. You can say, yeah, you can say anything here you want, Stephen. Sure. So I was really happy about that. That's going to be very exciting. Um, Of course, we all want to give our congratulations to our guest that came out last week. Miss Danny Shepard was here last week, and over the weekend, Miss Danny Shepard got engaged. She got engaged. Her boyfriend proposed to her, and she accepted. So congratulations to our new friend Danny Shepard for that. Awesome. See. Those pictures with the Christy and you know what? I think if Christy had known that, if Christy had known a little that you were coming, I think she probably would have broke out Philip. Wait till you see Thursday when we talk. See if we don't see Black Phillip sitting next to her when we talk. Black Phillip is the thing. Those are great pictures too, by the way. We got pictures sent to us from Steven here, who went to Texas Frightmare, and we also got pictures that was sent to us from Larry the Cat Dad. He also got pictures taken, and of course, he sent the one picture. He sent picture. Well, you'll see Black Phillip this Thursday. I tell you that Black Phillip will be there Thursday. Um, so Larry the Cat Dad, he got a picture with Michael Ironside. So so Steven got a picture with Christy, and Larry got a picture with Michael Ironside. those are the two big names that we were hoping to see pictures of from the Texas Frightmare, and we got both pictures sent to us. That's amazing. So, uh, um, oh, sheesh, you should ask her. You should ask her for her show. Christy is a fine podcaster in her own right. In fact, her podcast does very, very well. It comes out like on a Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock Pacific time, 5 o'clock our time, Eastern time, and she does a really great show. She has movie reviews, and of course, she does talks about the business. Um, I'm excited about that because she had been showing on her Instagram page. She'd been showing new collectibles that have been coming out. Like I said, most of the time when I talk to Christy, when I talk to her now, it's all about conventions. Like either be Texas Frightmare or conventions in Las Vegas or California. And then in November, I have her on because then we talk about the toys that are coming out for Christmas. So if you're a collector and you want to get something cool for Christmas, either treat yourself, have someone give it to you, or you give it to a collector who's collecting. Then we talk Christmas stuff on November. So, but she's been posting some new toys and new collectibles coming out now that I'm really hoping that we'll be able to talk about it on Thursday. All right, so put your hands together. Our guest is here. The doorbell has rang, so let's go bring him on. And please welcome Chris Alexander. And here we go. All right, how are you doing, Chris?
I'm pretty good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, it's an honor to meet you, man. Finally, I was actually thinking about this yesterday.
Yeah, it's been a few years. It's been a few years. It's been a few years, man.
Well, first of all, you're the only person I would actually have on today. Normally, I would not be here doing this, but when I had a chance to have you on here, I said, it's appropriate to have you here because you were one of the people I have walked through with me during when Lori was sick, and that's something that you and I met when that happened, and then we got to know each other through that.
Yeah.
And then one of your friends got it, and one of your coworkers got it. The young lady, I don't know, maybe middle-aged lady, really nice, super sweet. And I remember that she caught it, and then then we're back and we're talking life. You and I, we're talking life, and not movies, and I think that's when you became, just like someone who I respected as for your job and for what you did. You went from there to becoming a friend. And,
yeah.
And it's
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this, and this because yes, and now this many years later, I've experienced infinitely more loss. I mean, this is one of the fun things about aging and surviving is that you may make it to the next level, but not everyone's going to follow you. So, life is a succession of heartbreaks, makes it bearable by, finding the joy in the putty and the cracks in there somewhere, but no, I think that, honestly, I swear to you, man, this is like, I've loved strange movies, monsters, horror movies, literally my entire life since I have a memory. And I have never met more empathetic people than people that really love and understand, let's say darker, stranger cinema, movies that deal with death and maybe confront those kinds of themes head on. I find them to be, by and large, I'm painting with a broad brush, pretty empathetic human beings. More so if they were, again, broad brush, but the average sports fan or something, there's just more of kind of an emotional connection. I feel like when you love more dramatic, darker kinds of films, I know that is true for me. Growing up, even before I experienced all this loss, having great empathy for characters I cared about on screen, experiencing it, so that when that time came, it felt like, okay, I kind of understand. I don't want to be here. I don't fully understand it, but I've seen this before. What did this character do? And and how did they react? And so even when you're not personally going through it, just to witness somebody else going through it on a sheer, you're kind of trained, you're weaned, you're forged by fright films, I think.
Right. Yeah. Isn't it strange? Isn't it the strangest thing too? Is when for I discovered this by talking to producers and directors and actors.
Hmm.
It's really strange. It's like once you meet somebody, right? You meet somebody like like an actor or an actress, and you meet them and you talk to them, right? And and they play different roles. All of a sudden, you don't want to see them die on screen anymore. You just don't. You just like, no, I'm good. I mean, because they're that's your friend. That's your friend. That's who you know that person. And seeing them suffer through a horrible fate, it isn't just one of those things where it's like, oh wow, look at that cool trap, that crazy jigsaw. What a card, what a character.
Yeah, because you're humanizing it's every time you're watching a fantasy, it's an illusion, it's a magic trick. But once you see the wizard behind the curtain, and you can actually put a name, you can hear someone's voice, how they smell, they move. Suddenly it's like, that person's real, and then the illusion is somewhat fucked with, So it's your brain is kind of tripped out. I know, my son makes movies. He's 17 now, almost. He'll be 17 tomorrow, actually. But he, he's been making short films since he was really little. But my youngest son, who has always been in his, whether he liked it or not, he's like, Ben, you're in my movies. Like, okay. And he'd always end up getting killed in these movies, man. It almost becomes like a South Park, like you killed Kenny. Ben would always get wiped out in all these movies. And the whole family would be like, oh no, Ben die again. Oh, it's so horrible. It's like, this is like a little kid's movie shot on a phone. But Ben keeps dying. I mean, it's like, yes. So even though it isn't the illusion of cinema, when you know the person for sure, it changes things.
I have a friend of mine in the business, Mike Ferguson, and him and I talk about that too. And he'll sit there, he'll ping me and says, I got a new part. And the first thing I'm saying, you're not Sean Beaning in this one, are you? And he goes, no, I'm not beaning this one. Because Sean Bean dies in every movie. And so, it's like, you're not Sean Beaning it. And, it's like, you sit there going like, well, can't they let you live this time through? I mean, you got killed last movie. Can't you just flip the script a little bit?
I guess it's typecasting, right? I don't know. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. It's those actors who are just sympathetic enough that you like them, so that when they die, the audience feels something. So
right.
So and Sean Bean is kind of that guy, isn't he? Like he's maybe it's a kindness in his eyes. There's something about him that even when he plays darker characters, you kind of like. So when he gets greased, you're like, oh, so like Game of Thrones, of course, famously, you're so with this guy, and then suddenly he gets decapitated in like season 1, not even to the in the middle. Like, God damn it! It's the Janet Leigh effect, right? Killing her before the first reels.
Right, during the first. It's like a.
Speaking of, here's my you like my Hitchcock mug? It's
very nice.
It's black, but then when you put a hot liquid in it, Hitchcock's face appears and all his movie titles appear on the side. And it's starting to cool a little bit. So some of the time, I think we're down to just like maybe I don't know, not too much Shadow of a Doubt. I mean, there's only a few films.
You know what? When it gets to Lifeboat, that's when that tells you need to go to the coffee and fill up the cup.
Yeah. There's Lifeboat's not even on here. It just goes to show you. We're at Vertigo. Vertigo's fading. Rope is still there though. But yeah, it's my coffee is rapidly cooling. Anyway,
I'm going to go to the chat real quick, say hi to everybody coming in. Hello, Marianne. Thank you for coming in. Our good friend and very talented artist, Lazy Cheetah, is here. Of course, our press guru, Stephen Chang, is here. He's talking to us a little bit about Texas Frightmare. And the very well-respected and very dynamic film critic, Sin, is here from Sin's Corner. Thank you guys for all coming in. This is Chris Alexander. And if you grew up on horror, sooner or later you touch Chris Alexander has touched you through his work in Fangoria. How many years were you there in Fangoria, Chris? You were there for.
Well, no, I started off like when in the context of like writing for magazines, for horror movie magazines, with a Canadian magazine called Rue Morgue.
Mm-hmm.
I was there almost right from the beginning. and I was there for many years. I had a column, maybe some readers might remember a column called Schizoid Cinephile. That was me. And then I was on the radio station and you know, really very prolific there. And then I started writing for Fangoria at the same time in the, I don't know, it was like 2005, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of I was kind of there. And then I got hired with Fangoria to be their Canadian, because I'm in Toronto, Canadian correspondent. So I was. And then 2 years later, not even 2 years, they called me up and said, "Do you want to run this whole magazine?" I said, "All right." So I took over from Tony Timpone, who'd been there for like double decades. Yeah. And I ran that. So I ran the magazine for about 6 years, I think. I was the editor before I bailed to start another magazine. So yes, I was only in charge of it for 6 years. Was there
no offense to Tony Timpone, no offense to him, but your 6 years were the best. It really was.
Well, that's a nice thing to say. I'm sort of the dark horse, because when I came on board, the magazine was run by a very bizarre publisher. I'm not going to name his name. Just look at the masthead. And he was a nice guy, and he gave me free, complete creative reign to do whatever I want. So everything in that magazine was there because I put it there. And never had to check and see what was hot in the theater. I put whatever I wanted in that magazine, which was great. But the publisher was insane. He never paid his bills, and it was a fucking nightmare. So, yeah, I could only take it for 6 years because it was like, oh, my God. And then as soon as I quit, I think the mag took a couple steps forward. And then Tom finally collapsed. He finally, like, so many stories, so many horrible stories, but a great experience. Even when it was miserable, it was amazing.
So many innovative things. Like I mentioned how underneath your leadership of Fangoria, that was the first time I ever heard the term podcast. And that was when Debbie Rochon and Dee Snider took flight.
Well, they were doing, they weren't. Now that's not 100% correct, because they were not doing a podcast, and they were doing that just. Was my entry point. They'd been doing that for a couple of years before. That was not a podcast. They had Fangoria Radio.
Right.
It was actually a terrestrial radio station offered through Sirius XM.
But so I think the format they were doing was podcasting.
Very similar. I mean, the two of them, there was banter, there were guests, there was rock and roll, there was music, but that was a live on Sirius XM. That was a live radio show. That for whatever reason, Tom pulled the plug on that, and that was a damn shame, because that was a really cool. Yeah,
that was very cool. That was very interesting, and you had that, and then you let's see, and then you did that one, and then there's so many other things that you started. Debbie Rochon got her column underneath you. You gave her a column, I think. That was
yeah.
You.
I mean, I can't remember if I gave her that or if the column had just started at the same time I did. I maybe had, I don't know, but I kept it going. So right. Yeah, Deb, and I was the first one to put Debbie on the cover, which I know to this day means a lot to her. Someone who'd been in the business that long, and this was sort of before there was not a trend, but women were mostly marginalized in Fangoria to some degree, in the sense that they were there for sex appeal, but they weren't taken terribly seriously.
Right.
And, that's the one thing I'll say I did do. I don't like being forced at gunpoint to do things. Like, I was never a fan of things like Woman in Horror Month and all that stuff, where I felt like, okay, 1 month now we're going to say women are great, then we'll go right back to being assholes. No. I love women. I love women creators.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to generalize, I find them more interesting often than men. So I would always celebrate female creators, not because I had to, just because I found them the most interesting. And I always found Debbie to be fucking brilliant, fascinating, with this diverse career. I loved that she worked to live and she lived to work. So she was kind of blue collar, she would just roll up her sleeves and get the job done. So I put her on the fucking cover, and that was a big deal for her.
It was.
And no one had ever done that for her. So yeah.
Then they did it afterwards, though, with Femme Fatale.
Oh, well, Femme Fatale, that's true. I discounting Femme Fatale.
They did it after you.
Femme Fatale was before me, actually. But let's look at at the hard realities of Femme Fatale. That was, in many respects, the women were there for titillation. I mean, that's true, right? I mean, Draculina, Femme Fatale, if I'm not mistaken, they were there. That magazine was still geared towards men primarily, as the women were.
Right.
It was like Playboy. It was like Playboy for horror, right? So
right.
Yes,
yeah. It didn't really it didn't really praise them for their creativity or their skill. It was just like how pretty they were. Yeah.
Yeah, they
See,
were
that's
the era of the Scream Queen, which Debbie came out of, and Linnea Quigley. And the thing that that's funny about that era, the '80s, of course, and I think Barbara Crampton came out and said this recently too, is that, or not recently, but a few years ago, don't call me a Scream Queen anymore. That's over. Okay, I'm an actor. I'm a performer. I by calling me a Scream Queen limits me and says that the extent of my performance is I scream in movies when some monsters come in for me, but there's more to me than that. So I know that a lot of these performers like Debbie, Linnea, Brink Stevens, Brink Stevens is also a talented director. I mean, there's so much more to them than just Scream Queens.
exactly.
So yeah, that was a term I never liked, and I don't think I ever really used it. If I did, it was in air quotes maybe, but I never really perpetuated that.
I find myself asking if I could use that term. Like, do you mind, do you mind being called a screen queen? And then if they say no, then okay. But, but they say yes. And then of course you don't use it. Because I do think it is a stereotypical term, screen queens.
Well, it's limited. It's very limiting. I mean, it was a blanket term to kind of market independent performers that by and large screamed, died, showed their tits. And I found it very limiting because, like, for instance, take Debbie, for example. She had no qualms about removing her clothes in her films. And of course, she was never victimized because she always called her own shots. So we're not, saying that she was limited by other people, but she found herself caught in the grinder of starring in these films. And I'll tell you right now, Debbie's an amazing fucking actress. Like, she's really, really, really good. I keep waiting for somebody to do what like Darren Aronofsky did with Mickey Rourke and drag Debbie out of that and give her a really juicy plum role in a more high profile picture. So you can really see what she is. Because there's key movies out there when you're watching, you're like, maybe this movie's not great, but Debbie's always great. Right. Always. She's very good. And so to call her a Scream Queen, it's like, no. We're past that now. She's just a great fucking actor.
She's a great actress. The one movie I tell people, I know a lot of people when you ask her their favorite Debbie Rochon film, a lot of people go for Terra Firma right off the bat. The one I go to, Wrath of Crows. Phenomenal.
Oh yeah, with her work with Ivan in Italy for sure. Wrath of Crows is I'm not going to say right out and say it's a masterpiece, but it's an art film. So it's as close as Debbie's kind of gotten to appearing in that kind of art film. Yeah, Ivan's a very talented guy.
Let's see, Screen Queen should be a term for classic actresses, like actresses that are like the Hammer actresses, that sort of thing. Because I'm with you, Chris. I mean, it does limit it. And the worst person you want hearing that term Screen Queen with you is casting directors, because they will not even give you a second look. If you come in with that banner of being known as a Screen Queen, there's a strong, there's that strong stereotypical, and then it goes down to casting directors.
Well, right.
They'll see their name and just immediately go, they'll immediately go,
Well, it also comes down to the way people, the normies, so to speak, like to generalize everything. So even the term horror, what's a horror movie, what's not, often it's very subjective. It's just a term that was invented really by publicists to market a type of film. And so immediately when a movie gets saddled with the dreaded H word, a lot of people will stay away from it. Yes, exactly. A woman comes into a casting call and they say, oh, Scream Queen, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, she only does this. So it just further perpetuates the typecast, and then they can never break out of that mold. And, classic actresses, okay, I guess in retrospect, you can use that once they're no longer with us. But for example, Hammer actresses like Hazel Court, who was in Curse of Frankenstein and so many great British horror films, and then, of course, made her mark in Roger Corman's Poe films. Call her a Scream Queen if you want, because she ended up in a lot of genre work, but she was a really good actress, a really good actor, really good performer, and there was so much more to her than screaming for her life and running away from the villain, especially in the Corman stuff. She was, an accomplished villainess in The Raven, and a gifted comedic actress in The Raven. And, very multi-layered performance in Mask of the Red Death. Just a great actor. So, yeah, I'm never really all that excited about calling ghettoizing female performers as
no.
kind of curl my lip at it. But I mean, like you said, there's a lot of young actors out there who do embrace that. So maybe it's going to have a renaissance, and they're going to take it back and do something.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do, in a sense, it's like younger actresses. Let me get this real quick. Steven says, sadly, I never met Roger Corman, but I was wondering what kind of guy he was, like down to earth, business minded, etc. I could tell you. Well, let me ask you this question before we get into Roger Corman, because I think I've already mentioned my favorite. But what was your first exposure to Roger Corman?
I just wrote this book with Roger before he passed, and came out last year, and we launched it together in LA. So I knew Roger real well for over 20 years. And my first exposure to Roger was my parents, not watching the movie, but them telling me about it. So my dad would tell me about The Raven that he watched when I was a baby.
Oh,
and it sounded really fucking cool. And this is obviously decades before internet and even before home video. So to find a movie, you had to watch TV. Right. When the movie was on, you had to watch that. And if you missed it, then too bad, so sad. Or if it was playing in a local theater, which those movies never did when I was a kid. No. So I used to I circled the TV guide, and I'd sleep with an alarm clock, and I'd get up at night when certain movies I wanted to see came on. And some of the earliest films I saw, like I think the first ones I ended up researching a lot about Corman, taking books out of the library. I knew who he was. I knew who Vincent Price was. I knew what a lot of these movies were, and I was just drooling to watch them. And I think the first ones I saw were on a double feature one night and an all-nighter on a WGRZ, a Buffalo channel called WGRZ. It was a show called The Cat's Pajamas. I watched Mask of the Red Death and Tales of Terror. And then almost around the same time, I also saw Pit and the Pendulum. So those were the three that really kind of, but then I realized that, oh my God, I'd already seen a Roger Corman movie. I had seen the original Little Shop of Horrors on like a Sunday afternoon, So, yeah. And then as the years progress, you realize, shit, I knew who Roger Corman was before then, even when I didn't know who he was, because he had his fingers in so many pies, and he had given us the careers to so many people that I knew. Everything was associated with Corman, especially when I was growing up in the 70s. Everything was associated with Corman. Almost every creator was somehow connected to him in a weird way. But the first ones I actually saw were those three. Yeah.
The first movie that I saw that I really understood, like this is a Roger Corman. This is, I've seen a lot of those movies too, but but when I got into when I got into, becoming a fanboy and I started getting into science fiction and whatnot, the first Corman movie that I remember seeing and really appreciating was Battle Beyond the Stars.
Right. So that was late period, mid period Corman, New World Pictures, his own company. And great movie. And then also that movie, of course, we know a Star Wars ripoff. Let's put it right out there. No shame in that.
Oh, it was a Seventh Samurai ripoff.
Right. Well, Star Wars was, yeah, exactly. But the miniatures, the effects were the work of James Cameron. So that was the first time the world really got a taste of what James Cameron could do, and that was all because of Roger. So yeah, great movie.
No, I will have to say that I don't remember Star Wars ever having someone like Sybil Danning in there, though. For the life of me, I can't remember that.
That's true. Yeah, my favorite Star Wars ripoff of the period isn't Battle Beyond, which came a little bit later. I think it was 1980, if I'm not mistaken. My favorite was the year prior, Star Crash, Luigi Cozzi's Star Crash, which had, of course, you have your Sybil Danning, and I had my Lady Caroline Munro. So Caroline Munro and Star Crash. To me, a big improvement over Princess Leia.
She was Caroline Munro was the one actress, even more so than Debbie Rochon was. But Caroline Munro was the one actress I remember more than any other one that got promoted on Fangoria. I mean, she was always, every movie that she did, even when not, she was in Fangoria. She was like the one that got represented more than anyone else. Was that you, or was that?
No. Because by the time I came on board, Caroline was barely in anything. If I celebrated Caroline, it's just because I wanted to. Not because she had anything new. I mean, but Fangoria and Caroline Munro kind of hit at the same time, because Fangoria in the early 80s was obsessed with gore, and Caroline starred in William Lustig's Maniac, which was covered ad nauseum by Fango. So you saw a lot of Caroline in there. Me, I'm like I love Maniac. I'm a Caroline Munro Hammer, Captain Kronos, Dracula AD kind of guy. I brought Caroline to Toronto 2 years ago, actually, and was an amazing experience. And I have a print, a 16 millimeter print of Dracula AD 72, and we screened that together in this little cool little room in Toronto with packed room, standing room only, and it was a really memorable experience. My God, she's an amazing human being.
Let's see. Star-Lord says he says he sees a lot of classic movies, and new ones not so much. He says he saw a scene with a young Jack Nicholson for the original Little Shop of Horrors.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He did that. Let's see. Hey, Dell, how are you? Talking with the master of horror himself. I know you don't. The term itself, you got to admit, it does sort of rest easy on your shoulders, Chris. I mean,
Well, I don't know. I'm a jack of all trades, master of maybe a few horror guy. I mean, I don't. I do a lot. So not only the magazines, I make movies. I make music. I got a TV show. I got all a radio, whatever. I got all. I'm kind of dabble in all media. To me, they're all connected, so it doesn't matter. But all that, no matter what I'm in, attacking, approaching, working in, what medium I'm working in, it always absolutely is always about the fact that I'm kind of an encyclopedia of horror movies. So if you want to call me that, sure. I don't know if I'm a master of anything, but certainly a great admirer, and I've managed to make my living talking and about movies. So yeah.
I tell you what's really impressed me while I was looking over your composing, and you composed a music for a movie that I watched that was very disturbing. I mean, I was sitting there going like, damn, this is a really heavy ass movie. I mean, really heavy. And She Who Must Burn.
Oof. That is a heavy movie. I can't believe you saw that. That's great. That's a Canadian movie, the work of my dear friend Larry Kent, who I used to teach with. I used to teach with at the Toronto Film College, and before I knew how important he was, and I did some of the music for She Who Must Burn. But yeah, that's a gut punch, that movie. If you haven't seen it, that's a horror movie for sure. But it's also much more than that. So if none of your viewers have seen it, they should track it down. I don't know where you find She Who Must Burn, but obviously it must be out there. So
I bought a copy of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a copy of it. So it was an amazing movie. When we're talking about horror, and I'm thinking to myself, we're talking about movies that just stood me on my toes. And one movie I've already seen this year has done that. In fact, it's probably gonna be I already know it is. It's gonna be my movie of the year, because it's just, I don't see anything coming. I can't see anybody coming close to it. I really truly can't. It's a movie called The Coffee Table.
Yeah, I've had a couple people tell me about this movie. I haven't seen it, but you recommend it.
That movie will fuck you up.
All right.
It's a good thing.
It's so funny at this advanced age, I've never been a fan of I don't like roller coasters anymore. And sometimes I don't want to get fucked up too much in movies. I want beauty and horror, and I want to be disturbed, and I want to be, affected.
You'll get disturbed.
Okay, good. I'm really partial to, broad fantasies, monsters, vampires, gothic horror, and then I like deep, dark psychological horror. I'm not particularly a fan of people tied to chairs with duct tape on their mouth, getting their nipples ripped off.
Yeah, torture porn. And
when I was a kid, I loved all that stuff because I wanted to see the unseeable. But I've seen it all now, so it's like, I'm good.
Yeah, those movies, torture porn has never really been. It's never floated my boat. All it did was establish real quick. I was 21 when I saw I Spit on Your Grave. Now, up to that point, my mom would let us all. She'd let me and my brothers watch horror movies. We watched horror movies. I was the oldest one of the kids, and it's like, can your brothers watch this? Yeah. Friday the 13th, Freddy, whatever. I went and saw I Spit on Your Grave, and and I came out of the house, and all the kids were running around going, "Did you watch it? Did you watch it? Can we watch it?" I'm going like, never, not around me, you won't. Because that movie was just so freaking disturbing, and all it did for me, it just told me that I have a limit. I can go only so far. And after that, I don't want to go any further. Like, I can't do extreme stuff. I can't do torture stuff. I can't, I had someone send me a copy of a movie called Chaos, and I watched it, and I called the press agent back up, and I said, "Have you watched this movie yet?" And it was a woman. And I said, have you watched this movie? And she goes, no. Do me a favor. Next time you decide to send me something, watch it first. Then think about it. If you could watch it, then I can watch it. But if you have trouble watching this, don't send it to me. Because I thought that was only fair.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I Spit on Your Grave is interesting. I own the film. I had seen it once, and I said, well, that's good. I don't need to see it again. To me, it's like watching someone step on flowers for an hour and a half. I'm like, I like flowers. I mean, do something with it. Give me something else. I don't want to see a woman get, brutalized. It's one of those movies that forever I said, it tries to have its cake and eat it too. It tries to show the sexual degradation of a woman, and to the point where it almost becomes titillating, and then it tries to say, oh, but it's okay because she cuts the guy's dick off at the end. It's like, oh, I know. But I gotta admit, because I've been a detractor of that film for many years. I actually went back about 6 months ago and I said, you know what? I had seen the remake, which is just as vile, but it's got high production values, and Sarah, I forget the lead actress, is very good. I said, well,
you see the one with Jamie Bernadette in it?
Yeah, she in part 2, isn't she? I don't know.
They did a part 2, but the official sequel with the original director and Camille.
Oh yeah. That was with Camille. Yeah. No, that was I Spit on Your Grave, whatever. Some call it. No, there was a kind of a more modernized remake. It was brutal, but it had some good things about it. I don't know, good performances. But anyways, my story goes is I went back and watched the original recently, and yes, I found it upsetting and horrible, but I also found it had a kind of, I thought it was much better made than I remember it being. I found technically it had a real down market, greasy, rough vibe to it that was very over the top in its performances. It was pitched so shrill that I couldn't take it seriously as a work based in any kind of reality. I found it to be almost like H.G. Lewis-esque in its broadness. So I didn't find it as offensive. I actually enjoyed it more, if that's the word to use, than I did in the past. I mean, I found there's much more craft there, which I've seen a lot of these like kinds of films which have no craft fucking whatsoever, and they just get people into a state of vulnerability and just massacre them. But I mean, I like the Saw movies, and I guess that's the series that kind of coined the term torture porn at that period in history. And I like that. I like them because I think they're hilarious. I think they're almost like black comedies, right?
You know what? Okay. So I thought the first Stephen mentioned Sarah Butler is the actress in
Sarah Butler. That's it. She's very good. Very good.
And then Jamie Bernadette did the supposed to be the official sequel from the first one to the second one.
I heard that was shit. I didn't bother with that.
I will have to say that I've heard Camille talk many times. Camille Keaton is a beast. She talks like we're talking. She never let that movie affected her. If they did, I haven't seen it, but she talks about that movie. She and people ask her about it. She's able to talk about that like it's like talking about the weather.
Well, it's the movie that put her on the map. So I mean, it's the reason why she gets invited to conventions. So she pays the bills with that movie. And understandable,
Yeah.
but if you listen to even the director talk about it. Back in things I missed when I was younger, I see now, and I see that the director maybe had the pretensions of making something that had more to say. And in many ways, he was imitating the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and he was imitating Last House on the Left and Death Wish. So it fits in that oeuvre pretty well, and I don't hate it as much as I did at one point. And that's the thing.
I still wouldn't want to necessarily go up there and pony that up to watch it. But
no. Here's a bit of trivia. On the poster with the girl's ass. Yeah, the girl's ass. You know whose ass that is on the poster, right?
Isn't it Tiffany Shepis?
No, no. She was like probably in diapers at that point if she was alive at all. This is 1978. So the original ass on the poster for I Spit on Your Grave is Demi Moore.
No, really?
Yeah, because well, it wasn't on the theatrical, but then when it got licensed for video, that's when we saw the ass.
Okay.
And then the re-release came out, and that was Charles Band from Full Moon, my business partner, boss, whatever he is, released that film. And Demi Moore was his protege. He had put her in Parasite. And so by the time that movie came out on video, he needed an ass for the poster art. and he was kind of involved with me a little bit at the time. So she ponied up and put her bum on that cover. And now it's like one of the most famous butts in horror, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I understand that she's doing I guess a new horror thriller called The Substance.
Right. And speaking of nudity, apparently
Yeah.
she drops everything. She's full frontal on this thing. I've heard it's amazing. It's as you say, it's at Cannes right now, and people are flipping out. People are flipping out about it.
I hope it's they're so they're destroying. How many times did you go to Cannes?
Never. How many times? I never been. They asked me this year. Some people I know put on something called the Fantastic Pavilion over there, and they said that they want to do something with me next year. So I'm on board. I die to go to Cannes. I've never had an opportunity. I think I did once, and I have 3 kids. Oh, and I've always run this empire by being with my children. They're all teenagers now, so I'm starting to be a little cracking my wings open a bit, not have to worry as much. Although I did, as I told you before, I just came from the hospital before doing this because my son just dropped a fucking barbell on his. So I guess you always worry. It just like you trade one set of worries when they're teenagers for something else.
Right.
Barbell in his eye. But I turned down a lot of invites for things during that when they were growing up, and one time there was an opportunity to go to Cannes. Haven't been, but I can't wait to go. I will absolutely go soon.
So I don't know if you know this or not, but I did get to talk to somebody, and this is where how I got to know you, because I contacted you after this.
Right.
And I was so freaking furious. Like, I said, if I ever got the chance to do this, you and I actually met right after the Yui Bo incident. I was so angry about that.
Wow.
So angry. And,
wait. What were you angry about? What do you mean?
Because I was so angry because he did that. He invited you guys to go in there, and then he went off. I mean,
no.
I got it really special. He could have made it really special, and fun, but he was looking to hurt people.
No, I gotta jump in there. There's no ill will with Uwe at all.
No, I know that. I
knew exactly what he was doing. I signed up because it was very Andy Kaufman-esque. I knew he was crazy. I knew he was going to kill us. I knew that. I even trained to box. I had a documentary made about me training. And
did you think he was going to hit you that hard?
Or yeah, 100%. I knew. I was going in there to fight. I actually was ready to fight, and I knew I'd get hit a little bit, but then I figured I'll fall. And when I'm done, I'm done. And I did. I went like 2 rounds with him. I spit fake blood in his face, and we had a good time. And the other guys, however.
Yes.
Especially this one character named Lotex, who's no longer with us. He committed suicide recently, apparently. But and apparently it was all part of it. Someone told me it was because of this event that he got so trolled on the internet. But he kind of invited that in. He had ran a website called Something Awful, which was kind of made his bones on the internet with the whole troll culture. So anyways, I'm diverting from my point. Those other guys weren't really aware that ball was going to actually hit him. So especially Lotex. But no, I knew exactly what this was going into it, a pop culture, a bit of weirdness. I knew I was going to get hit. I took the hit. I gave some hits too. If you look at the fight,
I did.
I was afraid. He says, I was afraid of you for a while. I thought you were going to get me down. But boxing is cardio. And so I would have gone longer, but by the end of the second round, I could not fucking breathe.
I mean, the thing that really got me about that was the fact that it was interesting, and I wanted to know about how you talk to directors. Now you're a director yourself. You go from being, from looking at movies and writing about them, and doing film critique and whatnot. Yeah, now it's turned around, and now you're a director.
Well,
have you felt any of those emotions when people come and they don't, they don't give your movie a good score, or they write a critique about it?
What I've learned is this, and this is something I've always known. I'll tell you, embarrassingly, in my early days I don't call myself a film critic really anymore at all. I talk about movies I love. I will critique certain things about them, but I'm not going to bother talking about anything. And I see a lot of movies that I fucking hate, but I don't bother wasting time on that. I talk about things I adore, or I can always find a way to pull something out of a film that's of interest.
There's
So
always gonna be something.
right, so it doesn't matter who's signing off as director of a film. A film is an amalgam of many moving parts. It's the all the liberal arts smushed into one: music, performance, photography, lighting, staging, sound, set design. I mean, it's so many different things happening within a single frame of every film that it's irresponsible for people to come along and just go, yeah, without any elaboration, I find. So in my early days of being a film critic, I sometimes used movie as sport, which led to this Uwe Boll thing, shit on an Uwe Boll movie. Ha, ha, ha. What a loser. Ha, ha, ha. Funny, funny, funny. And maybe being a filmmaker has made me just feel a little bit more of a responsibility that I have a platform. I have a platform to talk about these movies, and I don't to denigrate something. If I'm going to denigrate something, it's going to be thoughtfully, critically, analytically, and I'm going to mention something that I like, because I almost 100% universally, there's always something to like in any picture.
I mean, in all honesty, looking back at it, because I gotta say, like, I know what people said about Yui, and whatnot, and I guess he's still catching some of that heat. But I look at people who are saying that shit, and I gotta laugh, because I'm going like, wow, if you think he's the worst director, you must have just watched movie. You must have just started watching movies today.
No, it was easy to pick on Uwe because not his movies were inept, but they were inept on such a grand scale. So he had all this money. So he had they were inept, but they also had Jason Statham and Burt Reynolds in them and shit. And you're like, how did this fucking happen? How did he get the rights for this? How is he making this? Why are people signing up? Well, they're signing up because he's got tons of money. And I've been on his film sets. They're big. They have weird German people hanging around. They seem almost very sinister in a way. They feel like there must be crime involved in this set somehow. How did this? It feels like there's like mafia money, and like everything feels wrong. So it was easy to pick his movies apart because they were so operatically bad. They were trying so hard to be contenders with the mainstream, and they weren't getting the language. So that's why it was easy to laugh at them. But he's not the worst director. He's actually a very good director. What I loved is after the fight, he picked me up at my hotel. He's like, "Come on, you'll come to my house." And I went to his house on the beach and walked his dogs with them. And we had like a 2-hour discussion about film history, dating right back to the earliest pioneering days of George Méliès. And this guy knows cinema really well. He loves and knows cinema. So he's no fool. He just something gets lost in translation with his movies. However, that said, I've seen a lot of pretty good Uwe Boll movies in the interim.
Hell yeah, I love Alone in the Dark. I think that's a fun ass movie. It kicks ass for me.
It's aged well, and especially when you look back at it now and you see how many shitty independent movies are on Tubi, and Alone in the Dark looks like a Michael Bay film or something. Like it's pretty grandiose, and the production values are pretty big. And Tara Reid is miscast, but she's not bad.
No, that's actually, tell you the truth, honest to God, tell you the truth, that's actually, for me, that was actually her best role.
Sure.
She really came across as, I mean, he made sure she came across as intelligent, and she, she had good dialogue. I mean, she looked great. She looked healthy. I mean, it was like her best role, and I was like,
it was easy for people to pick her apart because she was leading into being a train wreck at that point, and so people were looking for reason, and like, ha ha ha, Tara Reid is a rocket scientist or whatever she was. What a joke. So
you know what, Bill? I thought, I just wanted to touch bases with that because to me it's like it killed me when I saw that people were criticizing him, going like, he's the worst director, and I'm going like, God, I just want to just go out there and say, like I said, I mean, anybody sit there and says, Uwe Boll this, God, you just watch movies today. You must have just turned on the TV, because if you come out with that attitude, you haven't watched anything yet. But I'm with you though, Chris. I'm with you. I mean, there's one director who I don't mind naming. I've named them many, many times. Who I felt about him what some of these people must have felt about Yui, but in this case, it really does fit. This guy's like the worst on the planet, and there's just no argument about it. And it's a guy named Dustin Ferguson out of L.A. He is the worst.
Yeah. And he's very prolific too. He's
Oh,
seemingly
so
yeah. I don't.
you heard of him?
Oh no, I know, and he's a very prolific guy, and I'm not gonna say anything bad about him because he's making
No,
movies.
that'll be my job.
That's the end of it. I mean, he's doing what he's doing, and he's getting it done, and it does seem sometimes like it's a race to make lots of movies. Like it's just like quantity over quality. But I'm not going to denigrate him because I haven't seen enough of the stuff. And I'll say one thing about the guys like Dustin Ferguson is that because they're making so many things, sometimes history's kind to those guys because then you step back and you look at them all not as individual films, but as collectives. And sometimes guys like that end up being accidental auteurs. Like if you look at my favorite directors like Jess Franco and Jean Rollin, especially Franco. Let's take Franco. I remember the early days of Rue Morgan stuff when I would champion Franco. People thought I was out to lunch because his movies are so shit. They're not even movies. Female Vampire, well, you can't even watch that. It's not a horror movie. And that's crap. He's the worst director. The zoom lens, like he's got a trombone on the end of it. And I'm like, but that's not how you watch Franco movies. You have to watch 20 of them, not one. You have to watch 20 of them, and then you'll go, aha, oh, there's that person. Oh, there's that motif. There's that sound again, or that piece of music, or there's that location again. And look at the way okay, yeah, of course, that's what he'd do in this scene. So that's when you start to see the patterns in the work. And now Franco, 20 years later, is lauded as one of the great European film directors. So sometimes you have to step back through the lens of history.
He got that reputation too. I mean,
Fulci was shit upon all the time in those early days. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he got roped on pretty strong too. But as when I watched it, it was like, oh god, it's Italian horror. It's just like, but I got older and older, and then I remember the first time I watched Little City at the Gates of Hell, and
Right.
I had Christopher George in it. And I remember watching it and going like the first time, and they killed Christopher George on camera by taking his brain out. And I'm going like, holy shit! It's like that was a big star. It's like that's the guy in the Rat Patrol, and then they killed him. And then I'm like, wow. And then I saw the one movie. Even today, I still praise it. I still say that's one of the best. The last 10 minutes is still one of the best of any horror film, and that is The Beyond. That is a great ending.
I have a tattoo of the Book of Abel on the back of my neck, but I prefer Gates of Hell to The Beyond. I think that's Fulci's best movie. I think it's everything about it is so cosmic, and I saw that at the right time, and the gut barfing, and the John Morgan getting his head drilled, and but not only that, the Fabio Frizzi music is so great. The atmosphere in the city is amazing. The teleporting zombies are mind bending. The whole crypt underneath. I mean, it's just terrifying movie, I find.
I would read Fangoria. And I would always get my information from there. It's like, oh, how they did that barf scene. They made the actors take down that sheep guts for 16 takes, and I'm like, that's amazing. How do they get to know that? Talk to me a little bit about your editorship. What did you do? What did you learn, and what imprint do you think you left on the magazine? Horror magazines. What would you call your 3 biggest accomplishments
with Fangoria, or just in general?
At Fangoria, because I mean, you really.
Well, I
love Anthony Tampone. First of all, I gotta say, I went my first convention. It was a Fangoria one, and I met Anthony Tampone at my very first convention in San Jose, California. Mm-hmm. Super nice guy. I mean, he's a really nice man.
Sure.
And I still remember that, even though I was 18 years old, but I still remember he's a really nice man. And but my Fangoria was the one when you were an editor. I still remember that. Chris Alexander, editor in charge.
Yeah, that's very nice of you to say. I think but I was spoiled. So Tony did a couple good things. Like Bob Martin is my era. Bob Martin, the early days, where Fango was sort of like taking darts and whipping them at the dartboard, and whatever stuck. If it didn't, big deal. Move on to the next one. It was like a wild party. You'd get like Motel Hell bumping up against Thundar the Barbarian. It was like, what the hell? This is just a melting pot of madness. But by the time Tony came on board in the late 80s, the genre was becoming a little more commercial. Freddy, Jason, the franchises, and they realized to sell magazines, they just had to stick a masked killer on the front and they would sell. So it was a lot more careful throughout the 90s, especially when horror was starting to die. They were very, very careful. They put Jurassic Park on the front. Like, it was a very commercial and had to think about being on the newsstand, right? So when I came on board, the internet was revving up. It was happening, and people were getting their what's new in horror information from the internet. So by the time your little magazine hit the stands, everything that you had written about that was a scoop was old news, right? Because it had been beaten. The internet had beaten you to the punch. So my take was like, well, I'm not going to be slave to what's new. I mean, by and large, sometimes I will, depending if it interests me. But I'm just going to put whatever the hell I want to explore in this magazine. Things that are timeless. You know, every movie needs 20 years to figure out what it's going to be. So I was drawing from a well of creators. You know, I put like Gene Simmons on the front of the magazine and just sit with him and talk about his favorite movies. You know, that's all I would do. Nicolas Cage, people like that, just to talk about what movies they'd like. And just, again, putting Jess Franco on the front when I wanted to, Debbie on the front, just having fun with it as a fan and exploring the genre and treating it like a detective story to some degree, but still playing by the rules of what people wanted from Fangoria. I think I was always trying to find like a middle ground language that could speak to everybody, that was apolitical, you know, not political at all. If I wanted to sneak the subtext, the politics in, or my social leanings, I would sneak it in as the subtext, but never preachy. And managed to, you know, kind of find a great middle ground that tried to please all camps, but it was also, you know, kind of daring in some respects, figuring out what I was going to put on the cover, not worrying about what was commercial, instead worrying about what was interesting. So I was allowed to do that. The publisher allowed me to do whatever I wanted. So I was incredibly lucky for my entry point into the magazine to be in a very different place. That magazine was in a very different place. So I could really do whatever the fuck I wanted. So usually when people say, oh, I loved your era of Fangoria, it's because I took a lot of chances that you didn't see happening before and you don't see happening now. You know, the magazine's in great hands right now. But
what have you taken from there though, and how you applied it to the?
Well, I started. That's why I created Delirium. I just said, well, I like what I'm doing at Fangoria, but this publisher will kill me. I will die. I will not be able to feed my children because he's horrible. And so I quit. And at the same time, I had met Charles Band, and we had dinner together, and we came up with the idea of a magazine. And I said, I'll do it. We'll do it, but I need to have complete control. And Charlie's great. Do whatever you want. And now we're just finished issue 37. And it's everything I did in Fangoria. And even the same team. Michael Gingold came with me. He's my managing editor. Bill Mahaly, the art director for Fangoria since 1982. And prior to that was the art director for Famous Monsters of Filmland, all the Warren magazines like Creepy, Eerie, Vampirella. He was my designer right up until a couple of years ago, and he's retired now. New designer Brian Stewart. But even Brian was from my Fangoria days. So I brought the whole team with me and just, again, created my own little toy, which is Delirium, which is, again, not slave to what's current or what commercial expectations are, but rather what we find interesting. That's it.
You know, you're one of the few magazines too that really were pro a full moon. I mean, you're a pro. I mean, you guys are always right about the full moon.
Well, I mean, yes, but let's be, you know, transparent about that. Remember, Delirium is co-funded by Charles Band. So even if I had something bad to say about, remember, also my mandate that I don't say bad things about movies. Right. I talk about things I like. So you won't see, you know, but look at Delirium. You won't see Evil Bong and shit in there because, and Charlie knows, I don't like that kind of full moon stuff. I don't dig it. I'm an Empire Pictures guy. I'm an early full moon guy. I like the fantasy stuff.
I was gonna say you cover early full moon. I mean, you cover the Trancers and you cover the you know, the Dr. Mordred. You cover the
once in a while, yeah,
demonic dolls. I mean, the stuff they put out today, it's just not for me.
Sometimes there's some gems in there, and I know this because I'm right on the front lines of Full Moon. But I mean, for instance, we put the Primevals on the cover recently, but that's because the Primeval
species too.
We put Subspecies on a couple of years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
Primevals is like vintage Full Moon in that it was put together by David Allen back in the 70s when he was making Laser Blast and shit, and it never got made. Finally, in the 90s, Charlie spent like $1 million. Everyone went to Romania. They shot it. David Allen did all the stop motion effects for it. Then he got cancer and he died. And they couldn't finish the movie. So the movie sat on bricks and was this mythical film that the world was waiting for. And then 5 years ago, we all got together and Chris Endicott, Alan's protege, a special effects artist who did all the Marvel movies recently, but was started with David Allen doing stop motion, took all the puppets out of storage and finished the movie as an honor to honor his friend, and Charlie paid for it. And we brought the movie to Fantasia, to Sitges in Spain, and to rave reviews. And now finally, this mythical movie is out. It's available. So the story of the making of the Primevals and the finishing of a movie that people have been waiting for 30 fucking years is great. So that obviously gets covered in the magazine because the story is an incredible story, and the film is magnificent. It's the best. Offers the best of Full Moon.
Is that what was your favorite Full Moon movie?
I'm an Empire Pictures guy. Charlie before Full Moon. So I like Reanimator, From Beyond, Dolls, and those movies, and then early Charlie Band stuff like Mansion of the Doomed and Tourist Trap and Parasite. Those are my movies. Full Moon is hit or miss with me in those early days, but the Stuart Gordon stuff, Stuart Gordon's one of the greatest directors of all time. So Pit and the Pendulum. Yeah. I mean, some of those early Gordon films, Castle Freak. I mean, those are some of the great masterpieces of 90s horror, of horror full stop. I like some of the other crazy ones like Seed People too. They were always fun. Charlie was always having fun. He doesn't like to make things that are terribly serious. They're not political. They're not social. They're just escapist fun. But if I had to look at and we call them all Full Moon movies now, even when they were made before Full Moon. But my favorite Charles Band movies are those early ones. Like, again, Mansion of the Doomed, which is Charlie's first horror movie, is I challenge anyone to find a better 70s horror movie. It's have you seen it? I don't know if you've seen it, but if you haven't, you must.
The Star-Lord says Night of the Demons.
Night of the Demons is not Full Moon. No.
Yeah, that was Night of the Demons. Was that wasn't Stuart Gordon either, though?
Neither. No, Night of the Demons was Kevin Tenney with Linnea Quigley. Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, that was neither. Although it feels like a Full Moon movie, it should be not a Full Moon and not a Stuart Gordon movie. No.
I thought Full Moon did really great, and this is the other thing you got to because I'm giving you credit whether you like it or not. You're taking my credit. That's all I got to say. Because one of the things I really loved about your run too is because I can relate to this so much, but I love that you broke people. Like you were bringing things out that people did not know, actors and directors and whatnot. Fangoria exposed them to fans. Like here's a new talent to keep an eye on. Maybe it was Nick Cage or whoever. I'm using them as an example. Nick Cage or John Cusack or Linnea Quigley. You gave a lot of actors their very first national and international coverage.
Well, we say me, but you're talking about the whole scope of Fangoria, and that's right. Dating back to 1979. So when I was a kid, I was reading about I didn't know creative stake in that, but you're right. Like, I mean, the Nicolas Cage, for instance, Cage was obviously around for like 30 years before I put him on the cover of Fango, but he was in a weird place in his life. This was around the Ghost Rider 2 era, and I always, when I'm watching a Nick Cage movie, even though he didn't do any real horror movies, I always thought he was giving a horror. I thought he was like Vincent Price. I thought there was a certain plugged into the ether performance that he would give, even in romantic comedies. So I put him on the cover and I called him Nicolas Cage, Master of Horror. And I had my balls handed to me for that. People were ridiculing me. Fans were writing in enraged. How dare I call Nicolas Cage? What a joke. Blah, blah, blah. And now we flash forward to today, where Cage is absolutely a master of horror, where every third movie he makes is a celebrated horror film. And now all that stuff that I'd seen bubbling in the background is now on the table.
How does that make you feel when you think about that? I mean,
it did.
You were right. I mean, do you feel like?
No, nothing. It makes me feel old because this is a predictable pattern. When you kind of are honest and you do your thing and it goes against the pop culture grain, you're never particularly lauded or admired in your time. It comes later. So now I'm like, Christ, I feel old now because now people are like, oh, okay, that was cool. But it is what it is. You know what? It just makes me feel like feel pretty good that 70-80% of the time I've again just kind of, no matter what art I've attacked, successful or unsuccessful, I've been pretty pure to sticking to my kind of my manifesto, to what I like, not really selling out, although of course everybody sells out a little bit here and there, but primarily I've been pretty good with sticking to my guns.
Was that a problem? Was that because sometimes that was obvious in Fangoria, where like you could tell where magazines still do it today. I mean, every magazine does it today, except for maybe, and even them now they probably do it, National Geographic. But there were times where you could definitely tell where there was a product placement.
Sure.
Where you can see where we're talking about this, especially if it was like a major motion picture, and they bought a full page of it, and you're going like, yeah, that they never talked about that movie before.
I'll tell you what's funny. I'll tell you what's funny. My experience with that, and with Fangoria, I'm not going to talk about anything else because that didn't happen anywhere else for me. But a couple times it did with Fango. It was never the big studios that were coming in and making you, like, giving you a chunk of money and saying, do this. No, they were too cheap. They just thought they had what you wanted to sell magazines. So the one time I didn't, there was a particular film that I did not like, a movie called Cabin in the Woods. I didn't care for it at all. But one guy on my staff, his name was Sam Zimmerman, who went on to create Shudder. He's gone on to a very successful career as one of the inventors of the Shudder TV channel. He still runs it, but he was working with me at that time, and is one of my assistant editors. And he said, look, I love this movie so much, Chris, please, I champion it. I want to put it on the cover. I'm like, it's this mainstream movie. It's kind of hipster. I don't know. I want to put Michael Winter talking about the Sentinel on the cover of the magazine. Yeah, man. Yeah. And I relented. I said, okay, Sam, we'll do that. So then immediately I had to play ball with Lionsgate. And so then it came down to, okay, Lionsgate, I'm putting your movie on the cover. We're doing you a favor, but they acted like I was doing them a favor. I said, I need some pictures for the cover. They sent me a picture of a girl going, I go, well, Christ, there's 80 monsters in this movie. Can you send me a monster? They're like, no, we can't reveal the monsters. Meanwhile, in the trailer, all the monsters are in the trailer. I'm like, but they're in the trailer. I need pictures. Like, no, we can't. No pictures are there. No, this is what you get. It's a picture of the house or a picture of this girl. I'm like, well, neither of them are good. So I went to the trailer and I screenshotted one of the monsters and I pulled it out and we got my designer to clean it up a bit. And I put that on the cover. Well, Lionsgate went furious. They said, we don't authorize. We do not want you to put that on the cover. I'm like, I don't care what you authorize. This is in the trailer. Where did you get this? How dare you? Did you pirate this movie? I'm like, it's in the trailer. And wow. I said, you're not going to tell me what movie. I'm doing you a favor. You're not going to tell me. It became this huge battle. And I stuck to my guns. I put put it out there. But it soured my relationship with Lionsgate for years. I just said, fuck you. And I never did any dealings with Lionsgate at all. Because they had tried to police this image. I was very, very angry. So
and what a terrible loss for them.
Well, I mean, it was really, back in the old days, okay, I could see maybe a studio had more pull, but at that point it was a different world. And I was like, this is not how we play. That's not how I play. I kind of burned my bridge with Lionsgate for a couple of years, but then the guard changed. They came back all as well. But they didn't, my point is they didn't pay me one red cent for me. I was part of the, putting them on the cover, our magazine was part of a free PR for them, right? They should have been paying us, but they weren't. But I remember another time someone did pay us. I think the only time I ever sold out with Fangoria, I had no choice because Fangoria was in bad shape. The publisher wouldn't pay his bills. And our ad salesperson got a call from Sid Sheinberg, who, was one of the big guys at Universal back in the day. I believe he was one of the producers of Jaws, if I'm not mistaken, at that time during Universal's heyday in the 70s. And he had started a new company, and he had a movie called Creature, and with Sid Haig. And he had deep pockets, and he paid this exorbitant amount of money to put this little horror movie on the front of the magazine. So I said, okay, she said, we have to do it. We're in dire straits. I'm like, I need to see the movie first. So I saw the movie. It was a Creature from the Black Lagoon slasher movie with a guy in a suit. I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to make this work so we can kind of have our cake and eat it too. And I did, I did a famous monsters type cover for the creature thing. I focused the entire issue on man in suit monster movies. So there was a theme to it, and they paid us a huge chunk of money to help promote their movie. But I'll tell you, I always felt like really dirty about it. Even saying it right now, I feel like a filthy whore.
Are you kidding me? That's fucking genius.
Well, it was genius in the sense I made it work. I made it look like this was all part of the master plan, but it was duplicitous to my readers because we took the money. So, I mean, I've never felt great about that. It's actually a great issue, and the movie's actually very fun. But yeah, it was one of the only times I can remember actually selling out, but really good intentions though, man, because I needed to save my magazine,
Now, we would. That's amazing. That's a great idea. Now, have you done a theme magazine? Have you done themes like that for Delirium?
All the time. Yeah, I love theme magazines. I try to program every magazine I make. Every magazine I make has to have some kind of whatever's on the cover has to bleed out to the other articles, so it all makes a kind of comprehensive sense. I find, there always has to be some connective tissue between everything to kind of give it an imprint, a fingerprint,
Now I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to look down so you don't read my face here. But you mentioned earlier about Shudder. I'm going to ask you, which movies do you feel do you like watching? Do you like watching the films that IFC and IFC Midnight put out, or are you more of an A24 fan?
I like all movies, man. I mean, I don't know. It's just like if a movie's good, it's good. If I'm going to be honest about it, just so happens that a lot of movies that come out of A24, I tend to like. I guess I'm maybe a little more aware of that. I don't really think too hard about it because I've seen some great movies that just so happen to be distributed by IFC. But I am definitely a fan of A24. I really do think we're in a kind of renaissance when it comes to the genre. I think there's every time I walk out of a movie theater, I'm like, another fucking winner. I just feel like there's nonstop great movies out there. There's a lot of clunkers.
Honest to God, Chris, honest to God, I see people on here, and I'm probably going to piss off some people. So, man, they talk like the 70s and the 80s were the godhead of horror. And I'm going like, you're kidding.
Well, the 70s.
There's a lot of fine films during that period.
Yeah.
But Jesus Christ, get past the 2000s, it's awesome. There's so many freaking
especially in the last to me, especially in the last 5-10 years, I just feel like, and part of that is because of studios like A24, which are representing more thoughtful, more esoteric, darker, adult-oriented genre films, and they're actually getting a bigger profile, so they're ending up in multiplexes. Sometimes I come out of a movie like Saltburn or something, I'm like, how the fuck is this here? I mean, how did this movie end up in the theater with big stars, and like, it's an exploitation film, but it's like got some money, and it's fantastic, and it's ballsy, and it's gross, and so I just feel like, wow, this is cool. It's a much more permissive time, I think, now. I think people keep complaining that it's a very puritanical time, and in some respects it is socially, but you won't really find that within the arts. The only thing I don't like about modern horror films, exploitation films now, is sometimes they work too hard to put their subtext in front of the text, which I always think is the wrong thing to do. Roger Corman always used to say this to me, that every genre film needs to have a subtext. But the subtext should never override the text. You should always have something to say. And even if what you're saying is not correct, it should be correct. But if it's not, at least you tried to say something. But that should be buried in the mix. If people look for it, they can find it. But it should never usurp the fact that what you're watching is an entertainment. And sometimes I find with modern movies, if they're not careful, they become preachy. And they put that subtext too much in the front seat, which will date the film, I think, in the long term and work really hard against its longevity. But more often than not, I'm seeing a glut of incredible. Like, I program a film festival in Toronto. The started as the Italian Contemporary Film Festival. Now it's more international horror, international films, and I program the horror component of it. And so I've been like swimming in horror movies from all around the world, trying to figure out my 6-7 movies I'm going to pick. And it's been really challenging because I'm seeing nothing but fucking gold.
Did you pick Swallow?
I
Did you
swallow. Which one?
did you ever pick that for any? Did you pick that?
No, no,
Did
no.
you
Swallow. I mean, this is like what I'm
did
doing right now. So these movies
okay.
that are coming at me
Did
are new.
you cover Swallow?
I picked one called Cuckoo actually, which is amazing with Hunter Schafer. Like, oh my god! But Swallow was great too. No, I liked that movie a lot. Yeah, it was a really good movie.
I was going to ask you, did you cover that in Delirium? Swallow?
No,
Oh,
no, no, I
yeah.
didn't. And I don't think I saw Swallow till later. I don't think I caught it till much
That,
later.
that's
Delirium is not. Delirium is even less so than my run of Fango, is not concerned about the mainstream at all. The way I see it is it's a print is a collector's
yeah.
medium. People will get to these magazines when they get to them. I don't need to. If I would run something on Swallow maybe next year. Like, why not? If the mood strikes me,
Yeah, that
I'll
would be
throw it in there. It
cool.
doesn't have to be timely for its release. You know what I mean?
I will actually. I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna ask you that. I'm gonna say, hey, is that gonna happen?
Good
Because
movie.
I actually love that.
It's a clever film. It's a clever film. Yeah.
I definitely thought it was I thought it was an Oscar performance myself. I thought it deserved at least a nomination. That movie really it rents a space up in my head.
You know,
That's a really
Oscars, but let's face it, the Academy, generally
yeah.
speaking, even now, isn't particularly fond of horror. Though I will say, I was very impressed that Poor Things won as many awards as it did, considering
Yeah.
Poor Things is basically like a hard R-rated sex and violence feminist Frankenstein story, for as freakish as movies come. And I was like, wow, shit, people are giving this thing awards. What a great time.
They had it was backed by big money. I mean, that's really what I've decided. You know, I learned about the award season is it really isn't merit. It's all about pay. It's payola. It's like paying for radio. You know,
Well, you
really.
do. So what happens is, and I used to work for, I got my started working as a publicist for Warner Brothers Films. And my boss at the time was on the Academy. She's part of the Academy. And yeah, shit, man. It was like we'd get the Academy packages sent in where they were like shucking and jiving, hello, my baby, vote for my movie, yada, yada, all that stuff. And like bells and whistles. And probably they didn't actually send money, but boy, did they send a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then she's buried in all this stuff. And then she'd have to vote with whatever her category was. And I remember at that time taking her votes and mailing them for her. And she's like, oh, I actually forgot my favorite movie of the year was this. Oh, I didn't vote. Oh, well, whatever. And I was like, man, you know, like that's what happens. They're sucking you off to get your vote. And then you're not even taking it that seriously. So you're forgetting what was your favorite movie to actually vote for. So anyways, yeah, I never pay them much heed. But what I do find interesting is when the zeitgeist, when the mainstream starts to embrace things that it once upon a time would have screamed at the heavens as the seduction of the innocent, films like Poor Things, which would have been X-rated when I was a kid, you know, are now sitting in movie theaters beside Captain America on sharing space. You know, it's like, wow.
What do you think about what do you think about theatrical movies, Chris? Do you think the theaters are going to survive, or do you think they're just going to fade off like linear television is? The broadcast.
I used to think that theaters were on the way out, or would just be like for events, you know, like special events. But I think they've rebounded. And I don't know if that's because of the pandemic. People are just came roaring back to the theaters to have that communal experience. Because there is nothing that beats it. You know, nothing that beats a communal experience watching a movie. Seeing it at home is definitely great. You have control of it, but you can see it in your own time under your own circumstances. But nothing beats making that appointment to go somewhere at a certain time and sitting together in that dark room and turning off your phone. Although, fuck, man, most people today don't like to turn off their phone. I'll tell you, there's a lot of problems with modern theater audiences, man. But,
yeah.
Or they don't shut up. Then blah, 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 blah. How many times I've gone hoarse yelling at people in theaters lately? It's an epidemic. But my point being is that the communal theatrical experience, I think, is the soul of cinema. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I used to think it was on the way out, but I've seen it come back. And I think even if it goes to bed throughout history, I think it's always going to come roaring back in some way, shape, or form.
And physical media?
Well, I mean, physical media is perpetual. I think it's here to stay. It's boutique now. I stopped collecting. I don't really collect DVDs or Blu-rays anymore. I'll just cherry pick what movies I want to keep in my collection. You know, I have a huge collection, but I don't Dude,
I
I'm
know
not
you
the
want.
guy that buys the.
I want to ask, but again, I just want to ask, like, how many do you have? But then again, it's like, oh, I bet he has so many.
No, I mean I do, but you know what? I have like hundreds and hundreds, especially DVDs, like hundreds and hundreds. And I always think, well, I need to get rid of them. I'm like, no, literally every single one of these movies I love. And
Yes.
then I have hundreds of VHS. I still have all my VHSs I had since I was a kid. I have all that. But my big thing is speaking of physical media, I'm the ultimate physical media guy because I collect 16 millimeter movie prints. So, which are a lot harder to store, let me tell you, and they're a lot more expensive. Like I have a print of Dawn of the Dead that someone just sold the sister. It's a very hard print to find. Someone sold the sister print of it recently for almost $10,000. So, I mean, it's a much more expensive hobby and much more, it takes up a lot of space. But that's kind of like, that's my physical media. So that again, just goes to show you that the fact that people are still holding on to and collecting film prints that have been moldering in vaults since the 1930s, that people always like to have and hold their cinema. They need something tangible in their hands that they can see and smell and taste and touch and whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's not just a ghost in the machine, you know?
No, I was, I go to the library every week. I go to the library every week, and they sell used copies of movies for a quarter a piece.
Good.
And I'm there every Tuesday, and I bring out stuff back with me, and I'm going like, before I was, like, a lot of these movies I pick up, before it'd be like, nah. And then I talked to somebody who's a huge physical media guy. Shout out to Ken from Mid Level Media. So we were getting on him one day during one of his live streams because he bought ladybugs, and this is a guy who has thousands.
Wait, ladybugs with like Rodney Dangerfield?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He bought it for $6.99, and we're all roasting him. We're all going like, you really bought that movie?
Yeah, but he probably saw Ladybugs at the right time in his life where he said, that's a movie I like. You have to,
yeah. But because to me, what really gets me with what I really like, I know we have a lot of collectors, and there's a lot of people that'll show off what they got, but what they don't do, they don't show off what they watch. And you're sitting there going like, man, I really, he got Tower of Terror. I got this. All right, great. Now it's like, okay, great, you got it, but I'm more interested in seeing what you thought about it. What did you think? Was it good? And then you don't get that, and but what he did was he said, the reason I got it wasn't because necessarily I needed it. I just got it because I'm not sure if I'll get a chance to ever get it again. And and that really stuck with me. And I'm going like, wow, he's got a point there. It's like when you do get these movies, you are, and also in a sense, you're also saving them, because a movie like I just showed, I mean, this is a DVD, and every year attrition takes more and more out. Sure, they might have printed up 50,000 in 1997, but I'm sure by today there's not 50,000 flying around. That's
right.
probably less than half of that.
And a movie like that, I mean, obviously someone owns the rights, probably someone has a negative somewhere, someplace. But what's the demand for that movie? That's the thing.
Right.
It has to be a demand for somebody to actually go in there and do the work to represent it to the world. And will they? I don't know. I have a lot of movies that are on VHS that have never even hit DVD. I have a lot of 16 millimeter films, like especially made for TV pictures, because I'm a huge made for TV movie junkie, that never came to VHS. No one's ever fucking seen them since they aired once on television in the 1970s and sat in a print and then went into the garbage can. And I have those prints because they're nowhere else. And I've tried to convince certain labels, like, you need to release Secrets of a Married Man with William Shatner and Sybil Shepherd. You know, the one where Shatner runs around and fucks all the hookers and gets VD. Come on, you got to see that. You got to get that out there. I'm like, nah, we're not interested. I'm like, are you out of your minds? I have this beautiful print. You can strike if you can't find the negative, you can strike the mat. No, we don't care.
Now, are all your movies that you've directed, are they all out for physical media? Can we?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. Except for a couple of full moon ones, like Parasite Lady's not out yet, or It Knows You're Alone. Everything else is on Blu-ray and DVD.
Okay. Now, are they all? So you, where can we get them? Who's distributing them?
Severn. Everybody owns every. My deal is always like, give me a chunk of money, guarantee me that this film will be released. I will salary myself out of that chunk of money. You can own that movie. I only own 3 of my movies. The rest have been made for third parties. and give me creative control. I always have to have 100% creative control.
Right.
So the first two movies are owned by Severin Films. They were produced by David Gregory.
Nice.
The third one is owned by a company called Artsploitation, but recently they sold that to somebody else, Shoreline, and then Shoreline sold it to Kino Lorber. So Kino Lorber has that now.
So art exploitation, right? So Raymond Murray.
Ray Murray, yeah, he produced it.
Oh,
Great guy, man.
Raymond Murray is freaking
Great guy. He's
genius.
got a new company now too. I forget the name of it, but Ray's great.
Cinephobia releasing.
Yes, Cinephobia. That's right.
And the coffee table, he released it.
Oh, is that his? Okay, yeah. No, he has big balls. Big balls, that guy. Big balls.
He did Brightwood. He did Brightwood last year. That was my number one film last year. Was Brightwood, and he released that one too.
No, he's always up to like releasing weird shit. I mean, like he produced my movie, Female Werewolf, which is about as weird as it gets. And then a couple of
is that coming out on? Is that coming out a Female Werewolf? Is that coming out on Cinephobia?
No, it was put out by Artsploitation, which is no longer. So it was Ray, but like I said, Ray sold it off to a bunch of companies. Kino Lorber owns it now.
Right.
They've licensed it for streaming. I don't know. It's on Blu-ray and DVD. It's already been out for years. So
it was funny because I knew that he sold it to Kino Lorber, and so I really thought that would be the end of it. I didn't think I've interviewed several directors that have done art exploitation movies and what have you, and I loved it. And me and Ray, we were talking about a movie called freaking I can only tell you the end of it. It was this action movie about this woman who's after revenge for her brother and father get killed, and so she tracks down the bad guys.
There's a lot of those, but anyways, go on.
She tracks them down to a garage, and there's all the bad guys, and they have a henchwoman, a woman too, and the woman's like 9 months pregnant, and the main heroine, she's after revenge. She shoots and kills the pregnant woman, and they show it. Him and I had a discussion about that movie. We're like, wow. I said it was a great movie until that, and then it went off the rails for me. I was like, it was just like, no, absolutely not. That was like, it was one of those I spit on your grave moments. Like, okay, that's a limitation there. I mean, I can understand her.
Yes, that limitation is subjective, right? So it's like we all have our different points where we tune out. That also changes with our life experience. I mean, I could watch movies where a child would die in a movie and it wouldn't destroy me too bad. And then by the time when I had children, I had no tolerance for it. So
it's funny because me and my buddy, he just walked through the door out of the card. Me and the Bat, we did a retrospective on Friday the 13th, and I'm sitting there and watched these movies forever. And then on the third one, then we see that Jason had killed a woman who was pregnant. She was pregnant. She just found out she was pregnant, and Jason kills her. And you're sitting there going like, damn, that's that they did that back then. Because I didn't remember that. I didn't remember that. I didn't remember her being pregnant until I'm watching it again. I'm going like, that's the final girl. And then no, she gets killed, and it's just like, that's so broken. It's broken. It's like
first couple Friday movies were pretty intense. Then they got cornball.
Yeah. You know what? God bless it. Okay. So we got to do this. We got to make a promise right here. We have got to do this again within 3 or 4 months.
Sure, man.
I have so much more to talk to you about. I didn't even get to scratch Roger Corman, and I really want to do that because he was special to you in so many different ways, and he's special to all of us here. Anybody who loves cinema like we all do here, Roger Corman meant a lot. And there's a lot I wanted to ask you about that, but I am out of time. In fact, I actually kept you way over, and I didn't even realize it.
It's all right. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, when do the 8 questions start? And I realized you've already asked.
I didn't really get going on the 8 questions till halfway through the interview.
So we've done 4, so we'll do the next 4 next time.
Oh, I can't thank you enough. This has been a truly an honor to talk to you like this after all these years. And I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your support during my time. And it meant so much to me, having you reach out, making sure I was all right, and talking to me late at night. And I can't thank you enough for that, Chris. Way beyond a friendship. And I truly treasure that. And
There's that line from Dickens, we're all fellow travelers to the grave, man. I mean, that's just it. No matter what we do, what we watch, who we are, who we vote for, who we fuck, it doesn't matter. We're all fellow travelers to the grave, so we should all kind of look out for each other. You know, that's my
yeah,
take.
we should.
Yeah,
Some of us find that grave a little bit way too soon than they should,
sure,
and it makes
sure.
the rest of the journey all that much more painful, you
That's
know.
it.
But you know what though, I can't thank you enough for your influence on the horror movies, on cinema in general. You've laid your, you know, you've left a big imprint, and still are continuing to do so through Delirium. Um, but it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing seeing. I'm going to start getting. You know, that's one thing I did watch. I have to watch more of your films, because those are the films I look for, but I can't find. I have never seen any of your films on this side of the border, and I
Oh
cannot.
no. They're all in there. You can find them all in America. You can't find them in Canada. Funny thing is, they're all American. They're American movies. They're European. No, you can find them all. I think Amazon Prime's got all my Full Moon stuff.
Oh,
Um,
I should have
yeah,
known.
all
Full Moon.
Necropolis, Legion, Scream of the Blind Dead, which is also on DVD. Recently, actually, first couple ones, Queen of Blood might be on Amazon Prime. Blood for Irina is kind of hiding somewhere in the ether. Female Werewolf, I think, is everywhere. Literally everywhere.
I might have to ping Raymond for that. I'm going to see if he's got a
No, I
copy.
don't think he doesn't. I mean, they're going. They're sold out, and they were going for like $100 on eBay, and then Shoreline put them out, so they were cheaper. And now Kino's. I mean, there's so many of them out there. So if you look, you can find them.
Okay.
Anyways, it's been a slice, man. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And yes, I'll come back anytime. Just
all right.
Flash the bad signal, and I'll be there.
I definitely will. I know you got to go, so I'm just going to let you go here right now. Thank you so much, and we'll talk. We'll stay in touch.
All right, thanks so much, man.
I hope your son feels better.
All right, take care, man.
You too.
Bye.
Night. All right, Chris Alexander, everybody. Here, if you have ever watched Fangoria, if you ever read Fangoria, if you ever read Delirium, like I said, Chris has left the imprint. A lot of what we watch, he's helped shaped a lot of careers through the coverage on the magazine. Of course, it takes a staff to do it too, but you know, as editor, you are the voice. You are the final stopping round, and editor is an important job, and that's what he's done. He's made sure that very much so, Star-Lord. He's a very cool dude and a great human being. Before I let you guys go, a couple of quick announcements tonight at 10 o'clock, which is in about a half hour or so, over on Popping the Popcorn's channel. She will be going live with a fundraiser for our good friend Hobbs Horror. So if you're looking to help him out, he's got some serious medical issues going on. If you want to go over there and support or share the stream out, that'll be amazing. That's going to be about 10 o'clock. I'm not sure if the Boneyard's going to be on. I don't think it will be on as long as Katie's on. So there might not be a Boneyard today. And then tomorrow night, we will have Eric Hyde from Hey Internet. It's Eric. He will be our guest tomorrow, and we'll be just chopping it up like him and I always do. Boneyard is on tonight. So the Boneyard might be going on maybe later after Katie's stream. So I'm not sure what time that'll be. But of course support both those shows. Katie's on at 10, and I'm not sure when Bones is going on, and they're watching Terrifier 2. Art the Clown is awesome because Art the Clown is a cat lover. That came straight from David Thornton Howard. He said it right there. I asked him, I said, "Is Art the Clown a cat lover?" And he said, yes. Art the Clown is my favorite horror icon for that. All right. On Thursday, we have Christy Adams, which I got to rebuild the page. I got to rebuild my link to that show because I triggered it early, like a dumbass. But she will be here on the 23rd, and then on the Friday, the 24th, we will be talking with the Glamour Ghoul and Lestada, otherwise known as Creep Country Cinema, and that will be here on Friday night at 8 o'clock. And they are very, very lovely people. I got to meet them through the Oscars. Hey, Sind. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let's see. Let's see. And Steven's doing it. That's right. That's right. Steven is doing his live stream. He's going live on Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern time. Is it 12 o'clock Eastern time? Uh, 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 no, no, no. Thank you for coming by, Sin. Let's see. Cat lovers are by default awesome. Art the Clown is awesome. Um, so we have a really strong week here. Tomorrow, Eric. Thursday is Christy from Nightmare Toys, and then Friday is the Glamour Ghoul and Lastada. For let me say this right because it's a twister. Uh, Camp Country Cinema. Next week we have Jude Rollins and Rebecca Harrelson on Tuesday the 28th, a week from today, will be Jude and Rebecca. On the 29th, we have artist Sophie Me V will be here at 8 o'clock. And she is an awesome artist. You'll like her a great deal. And then on the 30th, to close us out, we will meet the Jess and Glenn. They are the powerhouse behind the Streaming Scream podcast. All right. That's it. Thank you guys all so much for coming by. I appreciate it. Share the stream out. Come watch the replay. Drop a comment. And we will see you over at Popping the Popcorn's channel in about a half hour. Have a great night, everybody. Peace. Man, I gotta get that female werewolf. That's just that has to happen.